it out. And, I've spent probably the better part of my working life in Canada, and then I moved to France in 1999, where I became a French citizen, and I've been working ever since. Most of my work lately has been in the development area, but not exclusively. And I'm also now doing much of our practice is looking into providing quality assurance, looking at helping improving the quality of evaluations and doing expert peer reviews about how things are coming along and how they can be made better and the like. And it's my passion for evaluation is that to me it's a tool which hopefully can help change the world. It's only one little part of what can help change the world, and that's something we'll come to. We can't do it all ourselves, but it gets complex. Perhaps what I will be giving you is a somewhat different perspective from what you may often be hearing from elsewhere. For example, I'm going to be critical about a lot of traditional RBM results-based management approaches, and including use of indicators. So you please do feel free to challenge or disagree with me. And while perhaps my approach is different from what a lot of others are saying, I'm by no means unique. So I think that's again something we can talk about if there are different perspectives. I've also, in addition to evaluation, I've done quite a bit of work in policy development, and mainly in the social policy development field, and disability, where I've even worked as a social activist. And I think all these things really help to make evaluation useful, which I think is really what we're in it for, to not just go through the motions, but to really contribute to something. And as we go along, we're a small group, and we want to make things as interactive as possible, and to really, address the questions you have and the needs of what you want to get out of it. So, please don't hesitate for a moment to interrupt or to ask questions or ask for clarification. Disagree. Can you understand me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. If I've been fighting a sore throat, so if I drop my voice or whatever, please tell me to speak up. And I think we'll figure this out better in a few minutes, but I think we've got people from at least 4 continents here, and I think English is not the mother tongue for most of us. So, again, if you're not clear about use of terms, and everyone uses terms in different ways, so if you're wondering what I mean by it, what others mean by it, it's not a dumb question. Don't hesitate to ask. So in terms of, let's see if I know how to use this thing. The plan for today, and first, you want to be participative in suggesting in interactive in a variety of ways. First, I'll be doing some presentations, but we'll also have some small group exercises for you to work on. We'll also have some general discussion and give and take. And to the extent possible, if there's some evaluation activities or projects which you're in the process of designing or working on or struggling with, we can talk about those if you would like. We could use them as case studies, even in some of our small group exercises. So you might want to just think about that right now. Basically what I was hoping we would do is, I'm just going to start out for a few minutes with just a general overview of monitoring and evaluation, just to, 5 or 10 minutes, just to give a sense of where we're going to go. And, then in the morning, really focus on what it means to be strategic, to be, for evaluation to really support strategic direction, and for evaluation to be both useful and used. And then in the afternoon, move into a bit more about evaluation, talk a bit about where impact evaluation fits in. And there's a lot of talk about impact evaluation, and not always a lot of clarity about it. So we could discuss that, and then talk more about monitoring, particularly about performance indicators, about the use and particularly misuse of performance indicators, why this is, because so you have an understanding of some of the limitations, and also some ideas about how you can use indicators appropriately, and particularly how monitoring and evaluation can be used in complementary fashion. Because there are certain things monitoring cannot do, which you need evaluation for, and if you try to do monitoring for that, then you're going to run into problems, and the vice versa. So, and then finally some opportunities at the end for reflections by us all about where we're at, what we've learned, some things we can take away with us. In terms of timing, we could, if we want to, take up to 1 hour coffee breaks, which I think is a bit excessive. What I would suggest, if this is okay with you, is try to have a coffee break around 15 minutes in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, and aim to finish by 5 or 5:30 or so, if that sounds okay. Does anyone want to go later than that? No? Well, if we're all excited and can't tear ourselves away, we can continue, or if there's some things you want to discuss individually, we can carry on. But why don't we aim for conclusion by 5:30 at the latest? And I think I've talked about that. Again, to me the big question is, why do evaluation? And you say, think big. It's to improve the world and figure out, how we can improve the world in one way or another. Because we can. So what do I mean by monitoring and evaluation? Well, some common definitions of monitoring is, tracking how you're doing against, basically how you're doing against the plan, against a predetermined set of objectives or indicators or whatever. And this is the essence of RBM, results-based management, performance measurement, performance indicators, and the like. So I think we're probably have some familiarity with this. Does anyone here know French? And what's the difference between suivi and control, which are two different words which are used in French for monitoring?
I don't know, but I've heard the word suivi more often in the
Yes.
context of monitoring so far.
Yes. Suivi comes from the verb suivre, which means to follow. And control means the same thing in French as it does in English. So what's the difference between monitoring you're following something as opposed to controlling it?
That controlling is more compliance kind of activity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
More of a compliance?
Yeah. Compliance. Yeah.
But you're doing what you're supposed to do, and if not, what's wrong? But then suivi, you're following how you're doing. If you're a manager, you want to know if things are on track or not, and if not, why not, what to do about it. So, it's supposed to, there is an important distinction. And, some years ago I was in Cameroon, and I gave a presentation, and I was told Cameroon was bilingual and English is fine, but, in fact, it's like 95% francophone. So, someone there prepared a traduction, a translation of my talk, and they weren't really up on the proper language, and they translated all my monitoring as control, which gave exactly the wrong notion of what I was trying to say. It's really, really trying to, impose your will to keep track of people. But this is very often the way it's been used. This is the rationale which has been used by politicians, by senior officials in government, by international agencies, just so we can control how our money is being spent, make sure there's value for money. These programs are doing what we're funding them to do, what they're supposed to be doing, if not, off of their heads kind of thing. So, these are two different aspects of monitoring, and I think it is worthwhile to bear these in mind. What do I do? Oh shit. Okay. The wrong button. Some other uses of the term monitoring, terms used in different ways as well. Sometimes refers to just referring to any ongoing activity involving data collection and the like. Now, evaluation, just a few initial aspects. One, and this I think is a fairly consistent definition. It's systematic, it's data-based. You use some sort of systematic approach to collect data so that some degree of objectivity. And data can come from monitoring as well as many other sources. And evaluation, and this is what's different from monitoring, you consider any aspect of a strategy, of a policy, of a program, or a project. Not just how it's doing according to plan, but whether it should be there or not. So it's any question is open for grabs. And the major focus of evaluation is in somewhere or other getting at attribution, getting at impact. And another way of looking at evaluation is to break down what the word really means. What does this mean? Evaluation. Anyone know any Latin? It's basically to value. To value something is to put a value on something. So there is a certain judgmental aspect to evaluation. Now, very often, are there any people here doing M&E? A bunch of you. Very often you hear monitoring and evaluation sort of run together, and I find in practice what this means is a lot of monitoring and a little bit of evaluation. Is this your experience? Or? Doctor said, oh, that's good. Let's come back to that later. I'd be interested in your experience. Some other organizations, you have one unit doing monitoring and another one in a different place doing evaluation. There's a wall between them, but they don't have any connection. I mean, some organizations are in separate buildings. I mean, African Development Bank, they're the other side of town, completely separate. And this isn't that unusual as well. So there isn't often a lot of bringing together. These are completely separate, which just really make a lot of sense. And ideally, and this is what I hope we'll get out of this day, is that monitoring and evaluation can be complementary. There's things monitoring can do to feed into evaluation. Evaluation can help inform what your monitoring activities can be. So, at this stage, any questions or any concerns? If you're an evaluator and you say, well, here I am, I'm an expert, I'm going to do my design, and then I'm going to tell you how you've done. I mean, how much buy-in do you feel to that? But if you're part of the process, if the theory of change, you're actually taking part in developing the theory of change, thinking things through, then it becomes more real. You're more likely to develop a commitment to it and experience about it. Your ideas influence the kind of methodology so that, where you are, you're taking part in, even if you're not an evaluator and you're a user, you're involved in the process, identifying the kind of things you want out of it. You're going to be more likely to be. There's no guarantees, but more likely to be interested in it. I mean, it depends partly on the focus of it. If we're taking a control approach that you were going to be judging this program, and maybe if it's a bad judgment, then maybe the program won't exist. Of course, that creates a certain kind of defensiveness, which may inhibit sort of involvement and perhaps, almost certainly create some resistance to the evaluation. So it's how you get people bought into that. And maybe it's something to think about as we go through the day, and let's bring it up as well. So I think that's, a constant theme, and I mean, that's something I'm struggling with too, and I think every evaluator is struggling with, so there isn't any simple answers, but I mean, that's a process thing, involving people rather than just doing it to them, because about the worst way to really create influence is to say, here's here's the final report. Read it, tells you all about your buddy program, and the final report is not, the technical report is not the way to communicate evaluation. And I hadn't thought about talking so much about the utilization aspect of evaluation, but we can talk about it, that if that's something of interest, because it really has a lot to do with, probably more than anything, as to whether our evaluation will be used or not. And I believe Michael Patton's at this conference somewhere, and he's, of course, written the classic book Utilization Focused Evaluation, which talks very specifically like that, starting with who the intended users are involved in the process. What do they want to know, and make sure that you focus on evaluation and what they need. So I think we have that here. Some questions about how can we, move from a monitoring to evaluation, or build in, more of an evaluation focus where we're just doing monitoring now, and we could talk about that. I'm interested in comparing practices, and I think that will come through today. Big picture will certainly highlight, again, how evaluation can make a difference, interaction among initiatives, things don't happen by themselves, and what are some evaluation models which could cope with that? Is that something of interest? Other things you hope to get out of today? Other general questions or anything very specific?
It may be an unfair burden to place on you, but if we think back to those old days when the sailors went out and they didn't have maps, they didn't have a globe of the earth, and they didn't have a the line of the equator, so it was hard to work out where to go. It'd be lovely to have a mapping exercise of who is where and what's where and how does the world look like and where's north and where's south. And the promise of synergy is big picture and the map of how things are.
I thought at first you were going to say, how can we do evaluation when we don't know where we're going, or we're programs don't know where they're going, which is actually another interesting question. In terms of mapping where things are at, I'm not sure. We'll talk about that. Yes?
Yeah, for actually climate change, it's like something that change over time and take quite long time.
Yes.
And when we do evaluation, it's like we get difficulties to show change. That actually the program, if we want to show change, like it will needs like 5 or 10 years program. Well, we have like kind of short timing program,
Okay.
and while at the same time we have to convince the national government on this. So how we can through our short time period evaluations, this can give impact to the higher level, while actually we are just predicting about what will be in the future, and we just evaluate just a big part of this long series. It's like most of it will be like prediction. So yeah.
That's actually an excellent question, and isn't related to, isn't restricted just to things like climate change. A lot of initiatives think of, health and health promotion are long-term initiatives. If you're trying to reduce lung disease and want people to stop smoking, it's not going to make an effect in the near future, but it might in the long term. So, how do you evaluate things like that? So I think that's an excellent question. And when we talk about theory of change, we'll look at some ways in there in which we can perhaps address this. And I see another hand.
Well, that was very good side to the evaluation, and when we are thinking that a strategic approach and improvements and impacts, I always think how I go to stand in front of the parliament, and they are waiting and they are assuming that I'm telling the results, they're telling kind of things done through evaluations and audits which are useful for them doing their decisions, further decisions. They are waiting. I'm giving such information which is useful for decision making further. So you, I doubt that evaluations sometimes don't produce such information or solid information about impacts, or they are very minor.
Because evaluation can't give the kind of information which the parliament members want, or?
Well, yeah, maybe they are sometimes they are predictions or wishes
Okay.
or assumptions. Like, for example, they are not they don't tell anything about things what happened because of the project or intervention and or program. So they need evidence and facts, more evidence and facts for basis of that information we are giving.
So our information isn't useful to them, or they don't like it, they don't want something
Well,
different?
solid basis of that information.
Okay. You know, that's,
Yeah.
I think, you know, one of the challenges, and there's a session tomorrow afternoon, I think at 1:30, dealing with the evaluation of the complex. And, you know, one of the issues there is that the world is complex and things happen together, but politicians often want very simple, straightforward answers. You know, in the short term, tell me what happened 6 months afterwards. None of this takes 10 years to make a change in climate. So how do we deal with that? So I'll just rephrase the desire for simple, short-term answers. Oops. Oh, I can't spell when I get in the flip chart. Oh, well, it's confusing enough, I can't read it, so.
Or even useful.
Yes.
Or even useful or
Okay.
solid.
Okay.
Not necessarily simple. The
Okay.
decision makers are they are educated people and they
Okay.
understand, but useful and give a better
Okay.
information.
Okay. Well, some of them are. I mean, many of you, if not most of you, are working in government and at some very high levels in government, so you probably have a fair sense of what kind of information or data may or may not make a difference. And very often, you know, the reality is decision-making at high level is influenced by many, many factors, and data and evaluation is just one of these, and that's appropriate. And years ago, you know, evaluation first got started, you know, in the States, and, you know, social scientists were, you know, coming up and saying, well, here's this evaluation, it showed this program didn't work. And said, well, no one used it, but there's a naive belief if you provide research, then things are supposed to change. But there's so many factors influencing the policy decision. There's many different constituency groups. There's also a question of, even if a program doesn't work, what are you going to do in response? If you have a program addressing healthcare and it's not working well, you stop funding healthcare, you know, so there's alternatives as well, and cost and many other things. And evaluators often aren't very good at appreciating the complexity of these things. So I think some of your knowledge of this kind of context might be very helpful in terms of, you know, when is evaluation relevant and useful and when isn't it. Other questions? Yes?
Just to come back again to the title of this workshop, with the strategic approach.
Yes.
We really hope that we can develop some more sense of, well, what really is the contribution of monitoring and evaluation respectively to this strategic approach. And I very much like what you said at the beginning, that evaluation is there to improve the
Yes.
world, and
Okay.
I like this aspiration, and to maybe inspire us to not see it as some technical tool which is like audit and compliance or something, but
Yes.
number crunching, but this aspiration and motivation to carry that across.
Okay, well, I'll do my best to do that. So I think we're probably time for a coffee break.